Jung's Analytical Psychology, Part 7, The Collective Unconscious. Personality Psychology, Dr. Michael Botwin, California State University, Fresno. The collective unconscious is probably one of Jung's most important ideas. It's what ties us all together as humans and provides a basis for us to understand each other and be able to see perspectives of other people as they're kind of hardwired. Now, within the collective unconscious live the archetypes. The archetypes are the next two videos. In this lecture, I'm going to teach you a little bit about the structure of the collective unconscious. And hopefully you won't be snoozing off like these students by the time we come to the end. Well, you most likely have heard the old expression, and I'm going to make it politically correct, no person is an island. Years ago, I found these cheesy little island GIFs with computers. You can tell how old it is because it's got old-fashioned CRTs on it, but the picture still works for me. So one way of thinking about humans is that we're all individuals, just like there are three individual islands here in some tropic location. How they wire up the computers, I have no idea, but that's a different topic. What if we take the water away and we find that all of the islands in turn are connected by the seabed? So unless you're in some bad Kevin Costner movie from the 80s, islands just don't float free. They're all connected by something. This is a common analogy Jungians use to describe what they call the collective unconscious. It's also called the transpersonal unconscious, the unconscious that goes across people. So all of the pop psych, transpersonal, trans other kind of stuff that you see out there, simply bastardizations of Jungian theory. Sometimes so many generations removed, they don't understand that they're stealing from Jung's ideas. Well, the collective unconscious is the storehouse of the latent, and memories is not super accurate, but it's going to have to do, of our ancestral past. It's those deposits on our minds, these things that have happened over generations and generations, and they become wired into our brain as archetypes. Later we'll talk about these things. So for Jung, the collective unconscious holds the wisdom of the ages. We don't have the specific memories of the ages, but we have the predispositions that have shaped our ancestors, including pre-human ancestors. And for Jung, this is the most important part of the psyche, most powerful system. It controls and flavors much of our behavior. I found this drawing from a textbook, and I think it does a really good job of looking at Jung's levels of the psyche. You can see that, well, I blew the drawing up quite a bit, so it's hard seeing the different letters and levels there. But if you start at the top, you have three individuals. Then you have family. Then you have tribe, nation, ethnic group, human ancestors, animal ancestors, and you get all the way down to a core energy. Now, when we get to archetypes, I'm going to show you how George Lucas borrowed ideas from a prominent American Jungian, Joseph Campbell. And if you're a Star Wars fan, yes, the central energy is kind of like the Force. I don't know what Jung would think of the use of his theories like this, but it shows that we have commonalities. Now, some of these terms are now archaic, so when we're talking about ethnic group and things like that, or nation, they're old kinds of ways of looking at different groups. But we do know, for example, if you go to the family level, that there are tremendous genetic influences on your behavior from the genes you've inherited from your ancestors, immediate and long past. So I find this extremely interesting. To recap that, you have racial memories or predispositions that go beyond pre-human. Go all the way back past our animal ancestry to the 2 or 3 cells floating around in the primordial soup where life began on this planet. Furthermore, according to Jung, the archetypes are this, and the collective unconscious is also universal in humans. All humans have a collective unconscious. Hence, we all have some of the same predispositions. And the collective unconscious is where all of these predispositions belong. This is where they reside. They give us ways of behaving, thinking, feeling in a certain manner. We're predisposed or hardwired. Now, why is this important? Jung says it's extremely, extremely adaptive because we have these predispositions already wired in our head. My term, wired. And we don't have to learn some things, we just can react to certain things. So, for example, during our discussion of the collective, or the predispositions, we talked about predispositions for God, how we're predisposed to fear snakes, and other kind of things like that. Now, how does Jung prove, if you can, that there is such a structure as the collective unconscious in our psyche? Well, he uses stories and symbolism and things like that. And what Jung found was that many, many cultures have similar themes in their stories, build similar kinds of monuments, because we're all hardwired to do this. Hence, we can understand other cultures because we have the same hardwiring to understand those stories. But before I leave you in terms of the collective unconscious, let me give you an example. You've probably already figured out this is one of the great pyramids of Egypt. It is an iconic human symbol. Now, a long time ago, the 70s and 80s, there were some individuals who investigate aliens who wondered how come different cultures had similar ideas or built similar objects. Well, those theories, primarily led by Eric von Daniken, who wrote a book called Chariots of the Gods, basically come out with the premise that aliens went around and landed in all kinds of places on the planet and told the humans to do certain things. And this explains those commonalities. I think that's fairly unlikely. I think probably a better explanation, although we don't have data to prove it, is that we build things because they're projections of certain things in our collective unconscious. For example, pyramids are objects that project the status and power of a civilization. We still are in awe of the Sphinx and the Great Pyramids of Egypt. They are truly ancient marvels. However, the Egyptians didn't have a corner on the pyramid market. Here's a pyramid, not made out of stone, but mounded earth in China. It's the Great Chinese Burial Mound at Zan. And if you look at the aerial view of it, it looks like a pyramid with the top cut off. Now, inside of the passages of that pyramid, thousands of terracotta figures were found whose job it was to serve the late emperor for eternity. And the Chinese have excavated these, and here's a picture of a large warehouse of the original terracotta soldiers. Most were soldiers. There were other functionaries as well. You've probably seen pictures of these, or maybe cheap knockoffs at a decorator store like Pier 1. Still a mound covered with vegetation. Here is a Native American Indian burial mound outside of Plains, Ohio. So we build these edifices to powerful people, or to show how, let me use common language here, badass our culture is. Here is another step pyramid in China. I bet you didn't think of China and pyramids as something to think about. There are pyramids in Central South America. Here is a pre-Columbian Maya archaeological site in El Salvador. This shows up on lots of travel brochures and lots of tourist pictures. The Mayan pyramid I'm probably going to mispronounce it, excuse me, Calicacan, and that's outside of, if I'm right, what does it say, Cancun. Now this is just a big mountain, but on top of it is a structure, and it's kind of mound-like. This is Glastonbury Tor in England. Legend has it that Arthur and Guinevere are buried on Glastonbury Tor. It's quite the tourist attraction. But these large edifices are symbols of the power of a nation or of a culture. And if you think that we're not involved in doing that kind of stuff anymore, the Washington Monument is an obelisk with a little pyramid on top of it. Conspiracy theorists look at the all-seeing eye on our dollar bill with the pyramid and think conspiracy theories. Pyramids, simply put, are a projection of power. When we see an image like this, we say, wow, look at that culture. they are that powerful that they can build these symbols. So I think the aliens probably weren't really doing this, but you can't convince the true alien adventurers. Well, what is basically, we know about the collective unconsciousness and archetypes from a Jungian point of view because of symbols. And according to Jung, symbols are the outward expression of archetypes, which are in the collective unconscious, and we'll get to those in the next unit. They may represent some kind of unsatisfied impulse, something a society is questing for. So lots of symbols, for example, for the space race, and symbols of, we want to move humans off of this planet and have them start to populate the galaxy. Well, you see a lot of symbols for that. We still have lots of symbols today. And we'll talk about that when we get into the archetype units. Jung also says symbols may represent something we aspire to as a culture. There are many symbols that want to move us towards unity, towards being a better country, and that's a wish that I think that we can all have. So you've pretty much got most of the structure of Jung's model down, at least enough of the basics to get you by as an educated person. The next two videos will discuss what I think is the most fun part of talking about Jung, the archetypes, and we'll finish off by talking about his 16 personality types. But that's enough for now. We'll see you in personality. This has been a We Have Couches video production. Copyright 2020, Professor Michael Botwin. All rights reserved.